You won't believe this horrifying story. I never imagined that such a simple decision could turn into a nightmare lasting for months. An underground battle I never knew about, lies, and ruthless schemes from someone I once respected. I thought I would be congratulated for taking the next step in my career, but instead, a series of events unfolded that made me question whether I could even keep my job. And this story started from an action that seemed insignificant at the time. I still remember the details of my early days at the hospital. After graduating college, I tried various jobs, from office work to part-time gigs, but what I truly wanted was to become a PA, physician assistant. However, despite my best efforts, all the programs I applied to rejected me. After a long period of disappointment, I decided to leave my hometown and seek opportunities in a big city. Everything was new here, and I knew I had to work twice as hard to achieve what I wanted. The first job I took wasn't my dream job, but it gave me valuable experience in the medical field. I started working at a hospital in a lower position, almost doing manual labor. Still, I couldn't complain about the salary, as it helped me pay off my massive student loan and learn a lot from the doctors and nurses around me. The first year, I worked the night shift, and throughout that time, I worked nonstop. In fact, the job was extremely demanding, and I often ended up working over 3,200 hours in 1 year due to the shortage of staff. But I never complained. In fact, I felt myself growing every day. I got used to the intense pace of the hospital, and the more I worked, the more confident I became in my abilities. For sure, I had established myself as a reliable employee, but not everyone saw it that way. My manager, someone I always looked up to, didn't have much faith in my abilities. Once, when I and several others were applying for a leadership position on the afternoon shift, I had the chance to face a panel of interviewers. During the interview, they told me straight up that I had potential, but my manager didn't believe I could handle the role. It felt really unfair, but I stayed calm and promised I would do my best to prove I could manage. A few weeks later, I was told I had been selected for the position. From a new employee, I had now been promoted to lead the afternoon shift, an incredible opportunity for me. But not everyone was happy with the decision. Some of the people who had been there longer than me openly resented it, and they didn't hesitate to express their discontent. They thought I was too new to deserve the position. However, I didn't let their criticisms affect me. I reported the issue to my manager, and she assured me she would take care of it. But what I didn't expect was that she would end up being the one who would make things even harder for me. Gradually, our relationship began to deteriorate. I realized that she didn't truly want me in the position. Not only did she doubt my leadership abilities, but she also seemed intent on replacing me with someone she could control more easily. This made me feel uneasy and uncertain. Every day at work became a challenge. But I kept pushing forward, not just for myself, but also for my colleagues and the patients I wanted to care for, to the best of my ability. When I received an offer to join a PA program at a nearby school, I felt like I had finally found the light at the end of the tunnel. I was ready to take the next step in my career, although I had no idea that I was about to face a storm that I never could have imagined. When I received the acceptance notice for the PA program, a wave of happiness and relief washed over me. After all the years of hard work, I finally had the chance to do what I had always dreamed of. However, that joy was short-lived as I began to sense that my relationship with my manager, Rebecca, was becoming unbearably strained. Even though I had informed her early on about my plans, how I would take some time off to visit my family and then start the new job, things didn't go as I expected. I felt I was doing the right thing, being reasonable, but I wasn't prepared for her intense reaction. One day, just as I was preparing to return from my break, I received a notification from HR saying that my access to work areas had been revoked. I tried not to think too much of it, assuming it was just an administrative issue, but things were far from simple. The first day back at work, I noticed a significant change in how people were treating me. Before I could understand what was going on, I was called into a tense meeting with my new boss, Daniel. He asked me about 3 formal complaints that had been filed against me. Accusations I could never have imagined. Unprofessionalism, workplace violence, and a HIPAA violation. I was stunned. unable to believe what I was hearing. These complaints stemmed from when I had worked the night shift, even though I had always done my job responsibly, and no major issues had occurred. In fact, one of the complaints alleged that I was seeking patient information when I had merely been retrieving my belongings from the break room locker. At that moment, I began to realize that something was terribly wrong. Although I had nothing to fear, after all, I had always followed the rules. When those 3 complaints were presented, and all of them had come from Rebecca, I couldn't help but feel trapped. It seemed like I was being set up. The allegations weren't just false, they were designed to undermine me in the most damaging way possible. I began questioning whether I could even continue in this job. Still, I decided to confront the issue head-on and get to the bottom of it. A week later, when the situation only seemed to escalate, I overheard a conversation from one of my colleagues. They told me that Rebecca had been meeting with higher-ups, constantly criticizing my laziness and unprofessionalism. She had even told others at the hospital that I wasn't worthy of the position I held and that I'd soon be out the door. It felt like I was in the middle of a battle I hadn't prepared for. While I was focused on excelling at my new role, someone I had once considered a mentor was quietly destroying everything I had worked for. I felt betrayed, not only by the lies she spread, but also because I had always believed in fairness in the workplace. My emotions were a mess. I wanted to confront Rebecca, demand an explanation for her actions, but a part of me feared that doing so would only put me in an even more difficult position. I couldn't understand why she would want to ruin my career. Was she jealous of my achievements? Or was it simply that she didn't want anyone to surpass her within the hospital? These questions haunted me every night, making it impossible to sleep. I had no idea what was coming next, but I knew one thing. I couldn't just sit back and let this continue. Something had to change, and I wasn't going to let her destroy everything I had worked so hard to build. After a week of tension, I began to realize that my battle with Rebecca was not just a simple conflict. She had dragged the entire hospital into this fight, and I was the one being dragged through the mud. Despite trying to stay calm, keep working, and not let the outside drama affect me, I couldn't help but feel trapped. It seemed like every move I made was being watched, and I started to worry that things were spiraling out of my control. One day, while I was working in the emergency department, I received a call from HR. They asked me to come to a meeting immediately with management. My heart started racing as I realized I couldn't avoid this confrontation anymore. Walking to the meeting, I couldn't stop thinking about what was going to happen. Was I going to be disciplined? Would I be fired? I had no idea what to expect, but part of me felt like a hunted animal, cornered with no way out. When I walked into the meeting room, I saw Rebecca sitting there, her gaze cold and challenging. She didn't look at me with the familiar warmth I had once known. Standing next to her was the HR director and several managers I had never met before. The meeting began with them announcing that an internal investigation was being opened into the complaints filed against. At that moment, I felt completely trapped. I tried to remain calm, but everything they said made me feel like I was being pressured. "We've received some serious complaints about your behavior at work," the HR director said. "These allegations are very serious and directly affect the hospital's reputation and performance." I tried to explain that the accusations were false, but every time I spoke up, Rebecca quickly dismissed what I said, making me feel completely overwhelmed. One of the most concerning allegations was that I violated patient privacy while working in the break room, even though I was simply retrieving my things from my locker and hadn't done anything wrong. Rebecca insisted that I had sought out patient information without any legitimate reason. This really shook me. I couldn't understand why she was continuing to spread these lies. Did she truly believe what she was saying? Or was this all part of a darker scheme to get rid of me? The more I tried to explain, the less they seemed to listen. Eventually, the HR director announced that a formal investigation would be conducted, and I would have to take a temporary leave of absence while the matter was looked into. Even though I knew I was innocent, I couldn't deny the overwhelming sense of fear and disappointment that was rising inside me. What I thought would be a new chapter in my career was turning into a nightmare. As I walked out of the meeting, all I could do was look at myself in the mirror, wondering if I could keep fighting through this. I couldn't let everything end like this, but I also had no idea what to do next. Could I continue to stand up to Rebecca and those who were quietly trying to destroy my career, or would I have to accept the fate that had been set for me? These questions haunted me every day, and I couldn't think of anything else except the fight to get back what I had lost. After that meeting, I felt like I was standing at the edge of a deep abyss, not knowing where I would fall. Even though I knew I was innocent, everything around me seemed to be turning against me. Rebecca had made me feel like a criminal, even though I had never done anything wrong. The sense of helplessness and fear grew stronger each day. I couldn't understand her. How had our relationship deteriorated to this point? A few days later, I received a message from an old colleague I was close with when I worked the night shift. She told me she had overheard a conversation between Rebecca and a few senior managers. What she shared with me was almost unbelievable. Rebecca had said that I was a danger to the workplace and that she would not stop until I was fired. She also claimed that I didn't deserve my current position and was just lazy. Those words felt like a slap to my face, intensifying my sense of injustice and betrayal. I knew that if I let Rebecca continue like this, my career would be irreparably damaged. I decided I had to act. I began documenting every conversation, every important event, and everything that had happened during my time working with her. All these pieces of evidence might be the only thing that could help me defend myself. After a week of tension, I decided to consult a lawyer. I no longer trusted the hospital's internal system, and I felt I needed support from an outside party. The lawyer listened to my entire story and then advised me to prepare a letter demanding that Rebecca cease her defamatory action. This letter would not only be a request, but a warning. I wasn't going to let her continue destroying my life. But before I could draft the letter, something unexpected happened. I received a call from the HR director. She asked me to come in for a direct meeting about this issue. I felt a wave of anxiety flood over me, unsure of what to expect, but I couldn't back down. This meeting would decide everything. When I walked into the HR director's office, I saw some unfamiliar faces present. All eyes were on me, and the tension in the room was palpable. The HR director began speaking, but her words weren't what I had hoped for. Instead of defending me, she said that the hospital would conduct further investigations, and I would need to take a temporary leave while everything was being cleared up. It felt like the world was collapsing beneath my feet. I had done everything I could to prove my innocence, but now they were telling me to step aside with no opportunity to defend myself. This was truly too much for me. I felt like I was losing everything, my job, my reputation. But in that moment, I realized one thing. If I didn't fight, I would lose it all. I couldn't let Rebecca and the people at the hospital easily destroy my career, and I would do whatever it took to prove that I was not the person they were trying to make me out to be. I walked out of the HR office with a renewed sense of determination. This was just the beginning of a bigger battle, and I wasn't going to let myself be defeated so easily. After the meeting with the HR director, I felt like I was standing at a crossroads. Everything seemed to be against me, but part of me couldn't accept giving up. I couldn't let Rebecca and the people at the hospital destroy everything I had worked for. Even though I was temporarily suspended, I decided not to let my career end like this. I felt like a wounded wolf, but still full of determination to fight. I knew I couldn't stand still, and I needed to act quickly. As soon as I received the suspension notice, I started exploring every possible way to fight the false accusations. I called my lawyer again and asked him to help me prepare a detailed file, not only about the events that had occurred, but also about the hospital's responses. Rebecca's actions weren't just personal revenge. They could also violate workplace conduct policies. I couldn't let her continue without facing consequence. In the days that followed, I kept monitoring every move from the hospital. One morning, I received a call from my lawyer. He informed me that the hospital had agreed to reconsider my case after the evidence I provided had forced them to take a second look. It felt like a glimmer of light at the end of a very dark tunnel. I knew this was my only chance to restore my reputation and get the fairness I deserved. However, the next meeting with the hospital wasn't easy. I walked into the meeting room with a tense heart. The people present were the HR director, a few senior managers, and to my surprise, Rebecca. She sat quietly, avoiding eye contact with me. My heart raced, but I tried to stay composed. The meeting lasted longer than I expected, and finally the HR director announced that after a thorough investigation, the hospital had decided that there was no basis for continuing the accusations against me. Rebecca couldn't provide sufficient evidence to support her claims, and I had not committed any of the mistakes she had accused me of. It was hard to believe that after everything that had happened, but I felt a wave of relief wash over me, like a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders. Although this victory was a significant step, I knew that things wouldn't immediately go back to normal. What I had gone through would leave scars, but I didn't regret my decision to stand up and fight for fairness. I learned that in life, sometimes you have to fight not only for your own rights, but also to protect the values you believe in. No one can easily harm you if you are strong enough to stand up for yourself. When I returned to work, although I still felt a bit hesitant in my relationships with colleagues, I knew I had done the right thing. This story wasn't just about winning or losing in the workplace, but about maintaining self-respect, standing up when necessary, and never allowing anyone to destroy the path you're on. I no longer feared facing new challenges because I had learned how to confront and overcome them. Every step in life is a lesson, and I've learned that no matter how tough it gets, if you stay true to yourself, you will overcome it all. This story of mine isn't just about a victory, but a testament to the power of persistence and integrity.